The common wisdom suggests that to make a man regret his actions, you must become an enigma, a puzzle he can no longer solve. This popular narrative is built on the belief that absence makes the heart grow fonder, and that by withdrawing and ceasing all communication, you can spark a burning curiosity that will eventually lead him back to your doorstep. This conventional playbook treats relationships as a strategic game of cat and mouse, where silence and emotional distance are the ultimate tools of manipulation. This approach is often celebrated for its seeming simplicity and effectiveness, yet it often leaves the person employing it feeling hollow, exhausted, and fundamentally unchanged. It is a surface-level solution to a deeply rooted emotional problem, a series of calculated moves designed to control another person's reactions, rather than to foster genuine self-respect. It relies on a superficial understanding of human psychology, one that assumes a man's regret can be engineered through a simple lack of access. This perspective, however, overlooks a far more profound and powerful truth. What if the most devastating impact you can have on a man's ego is not through a deliberate, performative absence, but through a radical and undeniable presence? This is not about being physically available, but about becoming a woman so complete, so self-contained, and so rich in her own life that his world, his choices, and his very sense of self suddenly appear impossibly small and insignificant in comparison. This is a transformation that transcends the trivial games of pursuit and withdrawal. It is about redirecting all the energy you once spent on him and his reactions and reinvesting it back into the sacred project of building yourself. This is not an act of revenge. It is an act of profound self-love and spiritual reclamation. This new framework fundamentally challenges the reactive mindset that dictates so many of our relationships. Instead of focusing on his potential return, it shifts the entire focus inward, onto your own personal journey and growth. It proposes that the ultimate form of power is not found in manipulating another person's feelings, but in becoming the master of your own emotional and spiritual landscape. When you build your own metaphorical temple, a beautiful and unshakable inner world, you no longer need anyone else's approval to feel whole. This is the difference between a tactical move and a true and lasting liberation. It is a journey from being a character in his story to becoming the sole author and protagonist of your own. The conventional path treats you as a reactive agent, a pawn whose worth is determined by her impact on others. This new, more profound approach frames you as the primary force, the creator of your own reality, a woman whose orbit is so compelling that others are drawn into it without her having to lift a single finger. The true wound to his ego is the devastating realization that your flourishing is no longer connected to his presence. He is no longer the central figure in your narrative. He is, at best, a footnote. This is a humbling and permanent blow, far more impactful than any temporary feeling of longing that a period of silence could ever create. According to the analytical psychology of Carl Jung, the human ego is not the true self, but a fragile and often insecure construct built from our conscious experiences and our need for external validation. It is the part of a man that needs to feel important, needed, and in control. To truly wound this ego, one must not engage with it directly, but rather bypass it entirely by appealing to something far more fundamental and compelling. Jung would argue that the ultimate blow to this fragile construct is the encounter with an individual who has embarked on the profound journey of becoming whole, who has begun to integrate their unconscious shadow and establish an unshakable connection to their authentic self. This process of individuation is the ultimate counterpoint to the ego's superficial demands. The archetypal analysis of this situation suggests a powerful metaphor. She is not a cocoon in waiting, hoping for a transformation that is dependent on his return. Instead, she becomes the butterfly mid-flight, a being so entirely self-actualized that the memory of the cocoon becomes irrelevant. Her journey is her own. It is not a reaction to his, but a parallel path of profound personal growth. Carl Jung would say that the man's ego is not wounded by her absence, but by the overwhelming evidence of her presence, a presence that is no longer oriented toward him, It's the sight of her thriving, not in spite of his actions, but because she has redirected her life force, her creative energy, and her attention back to her own spiritual and emotional well-being. This creates a deep internal schism for him, a realization that his influence over her has become obsolete. This is not a wound of sorrow or spite. It is a wound of awe and deep-seated regret. He sees her light shining not for him, but for herself. She has become her own temple, a sacred space where she can retreat and find solace, strength, and joy from within. The pain he feels is the sharp and undeniable truth that she has found a source of light so radiant that his once bright flame, which he believed to be her sun, is now just a flickering candle in the wind. This is the profound truth we must understand. The ego is not wounded by a lack of something, but by the sudden and shocking awareness of a superior presence. He finds himself face to face with a woman who no longer needs his validation, who has moved from a state of seeking to a state of being. And this is a reality his ego is not equipped to handle. The contrast between the common perception and this new truth is staggering. The world tells you to make him feel the absence of your light, to let him wander in darkness. The Jungian perspective reveals that the real power comes from turning your light inward, making yourself so radiant that he can see it from afar and understand that he no longer has a place in its warmth. He is a stranger to her now, a visitor peering in from the outside at a temple he once believed was his to own. The absence of your light is a tactic. The unassailable, unapologetic presence of your light is a transformation. It is this transformation that truly shatters the illusion of his own importance in your life, forcing a humbling encounter with his own reality, which is no longer intertwined with yours. The essence of this transformation lies in the psychological shift from a state of external orientation to one of internal sovereignty. She moves from a position where her emotional state is a mirror of his actions to a position where her inner world is her own, inviolable kingdom. This is the fundamental duality at play: the external world, with all its chaotic demands and expectations, versus the inner world, a space of calm, self-possession, and profound strength. The common perception is that her happiness and worth are contingent on his approval or his presence. The new truth is that her happiness is a choice, and her worth is an absolute, a given that does not require external validation. This is a truth so simple, yet so revolutionary, that it can dismantle the most entrenched ego. This process involves a profound psychological and emotional decoupling. She is no longer emotionally tethered to his choices, his moods, or his reactions. This newfound freedom is not just an absence of connection. It is the presence of an entirely new connection, a deep, unwavering bond with herself. She learns to listen to her own inner voice, to trust her own intuition, and to find her solace not in the comfort of another person, but in the quiet strength of her own company. This is an act of radical self-trust that forces a re-evaluation of every relationship she has. It is the difference between a person who is constantly checking the external weather to see if it's safe to go outside, and a person who is confident in her own inner climate, regardless of the storm. Carl Jung would speak of this as an essential part of the individuation process, the journey toward becoming a complete and whole person. It is about separating from the collective conscious and the expectations of others to find your unique and authentic self. This is a journey from the persona, the mask we wear for the world, to the genuine self, the core of our being. A man's ego is not just wounded by her transformation, but by the unshakable certainty she now carries, the certainty that she is no longer a supporting character in his story. This is a powerful form of presence, a silent statement that says, "I am here, and my presence is no longer defined by you." This new state of being creates a stark and painful contrast for him. He remembers a woman who was a reflection of his own needs, and he now sees a woman who is a reflection of her own internal light. This is not about cruelty. It is about a natural and inevitable consequence of her growth. The wound is a byproduct of her healing. Her radiance is so overwhelming that it makes his own sense of self feel dim and insignificant, forcing him to confront a truth he may have long avoided. that his value was once tied to her dependency. She has moved from being a mirror to a sun, and the sight of her light is a difficult and humbling experience for him to behold. This journey is not a frictionless path, and it is crucial to acknowledge the deep psychological discomfort that can accompany such a profound shift in consciousness. The initial response to this newfound inner sovereignty can be a period of intense loneliness and a feeling of being out of sync with the world. You might face social incomprehension from friends and family, who are accustomed to seeing you as part of a pair, or as someone who is constantly seeking external validation. They might question your newfound silence, interpret your self-containment as a coldness, or even accuse you of being apathetic. This is a natural consequence of breaking free from the expectations and narratives that have governed your life and relationships for so long. This phase of emotional and psychological unrest is a direct confrontation with your own shadow, a term Carl Jung used to describe the unconscious aspects of the personality that the conscious ego does not identify with. You are forced to face the parts of yourself that sought validation, that were afraid of being alone, and that relied on external approval to feel worthy. This confrontation is messy and uncomfortable, but it is also deeply healing. It is the psychological equivalent of a surgical procedure, painful in the short term, but necessary for long-term health. The gnawing doubt and the feeling of not belonging are not weaknesses. They are the signs that you are on the precipice of a significant and lasting transformation. It is important to validate the anguish that comes with this process, the feeling of not belonging and the gnawing doubt that you're doing the right thing. This is a direct parallel to what Jung called the process of individuation, the journey toward becoming a complete and whole person, separate from the collective consciousness and external influences. This path is never smooth. It is marked by periods of profound confusion and emotional turmoil, a feeling that you are tearing yourself apart in order to be rebuilt in a stronger, more authentic form. This is why it's so vital to show compassion for yourself during this period. The woman who is undergoing this profound shift is not a finished product. She is a work in progress, and the messiness of that process is a testament to her courage and her commitment to her own well-being. Your feeling of not belonging is a signal that you are no longer a part of the old system. You have outgrown the need for his approval and the validation of a society that values external connection over internal wholeness. The sensation of being untethered is a sign of your growing autonomy, the severing of the final cord that connected you to a dynamic that was no longer serving you. This discomfort is the space between what you once were and who you are becoming. It is a period of deep introspection and quiet fortitude. Your inner turmoil is not a sign of failure, but a powerful indication that you are breaking new ground, that you are moving from a state of dependency to one of profound self-reliance and emotional sovereignty. You are not alone in this. You are simply awakening. When a man who once hurt you sees this transformation, his potential return is no longer a matter of tactical success on your part, but a direct consequence of his own internal confrontation. His return is often not a sign of a change of heart, but a desperate attempt to re-establish control and to fit this new, incomprehensible version of you back into the old narrative he was so comfortable with. He returns because her newfound self-sufficiency is a profound threat to his ego's narrative of being indispensable. He did not miss her because she was gone. He missed the version of her that he needed to feel whole. He comes back not out of love, but out of a desperate desire to reclaim a territory he once believed was his. His return is a sign that the wound to his ego is not superficial, but deep-seated. He has been forced to confront the fact that she has built a life so vibrant and fulfilling that it doesn't require his presence to sustain it. He sees her light and feels the darkness of his own choices. This is where the true regret is born. A regret not just for his actions, but for the fundamental misunderstanding he had about who she was and what she was capable of. The sight of her thriving is a constant silent accusation, a living testament to his own short-sightedness. He is not just regretting a decision, he is regretting an entire reality he failed to see. Jungian psychology would suggest that this man is confronting his own shadow, the part of him that is insecure, needy, and afraid of being alone. Her transformation forces him to face his own emptiness, the void that he once filled with her presence. He sees a woman who has become whole, and this contrast highlights his own fragmentation. The wound is in the realization that her wholeness is not a gift he gave her, but something she found within herself. His regret is not a romantic longing, but a humbling, painful awareness that he has lost a person of immense value, a person who has now outgrown him in every conceivable way. This potential return is a test. It is a moment where she must choose between the comfort of an old, familiar dynamic and the terrifying but liberating path of her new, authentic self. His regret is not her responsibility to fix. It is his to bear. The true victory is not in making him come back and then rejecting him. The true victory is in having built a life so beautiful and so complete that his return is rendered irrelevant. Her transformation has made her unneedful, and this is the greatest challenge any man's ego can face. He comes back to a woman he no longer knows, because the woman he knew no longer exists. This new approach requires a mastery of the art of non-engagement, which is profoundly different from the popular notion of playing hard to get. Playing a game is a form of engagement, a constant low-level interaction even when you're silent. The art of non-engagement, however, is about a complete and authentic withdrawal of your energy, a redirection of your focus so complete that the other person's actions cease to have any emotional impact on you. This is a state of being, not a strategy. It's the difference between a person who is pretending not to care and a person who genuinely doesn't. True non-engagement is an internal act of psychological liberation. You stop monitoring his social media, you stop listening for news about him, and you stop replaying old conversations in your mind. This is not about discipline, it is about the genuine fading of emotional importance. It's the moment when you realize that his life is no longer a source of fascination or pain for you. He becomes simply another person in the world, someone whose existence no longer holds any sway over your emotional state. This is a quiet and profound victory, a sign that the internal shift has taken place. From a Jungian perspective, this is the process of retrieving your own psychic energy, which was once invested in him, and reinvesting it in your own journey. This energy, once scattered and dependent, becomes focused and powerful, fueling your own growth and creativity. The man's ego is wounded by this act of non-engagement because it operates on a narcissistic assumption that it is the center of your world. When you genuinely remove your focus, his ego is left without the validation it craves, and this is a far more permanent and painful experience than a temporary bout of unreciprocated longing. He is not experiencing her absence, he is experiencing her redirection. The ego requires a reaction, a confirmation of its own importance. Whether it is a positive or negative reaction, it still feeds the ego's need for attention. When you respond with true non-engagement, you are starving it. You are communicating in a profound and unspoken way that he no longer holds any emotional currency in your life. This is the ultimate form of class and self-respect. It is not about a show of indifference. It is about the quiet, unshakable reality of it. The absence of a reaction is a powerful statement, one that his ego cannot simply dismiss as a game. It must confront the painful truth that it is no longer relevant. The culmination of this introspective journey is the emergence of a woman who is not only whole, but also fiercely self-sufficient. She has navigated the dark corridors of her own psyche, faced her shadows, and integrated them into her being. The profound transformation is not a return to a former self, but the birth of a new one. A woman who is defined not by her relationships with others, but by her unwavering connection to herself. She no longer seeks validation from the outside world. Her value is inherent, a quiet and unshakable truth that radiates from within. This is the ultimate form of empowerment, a liberation from the endless cycle of seeking external approval. The strength that she possesses is not a rigid facade, but a resilient and flexible core forged in the fires of her own self-discovery. She has learned that the most profound love is the love she has for herself, and this love is not dependent on the presence or absence of anyone else. Her journey has led her to understand that true power lies not in controlling others, but in mastering herself. She has become her own hero, her own source of light, and her own greatest support system. This newfound autonomy means she is no longer a prisoner of fear, doubt, or loneliness. She has embraced her own company and found that within herself lies a world more vast and fulfilling than any relationship could provide. She has reached a point of inner stillness and peace where the chaos of the outside world, including the potential return of the man who once wounded her, simply cannot disturb her. The wound she inflicted on his ego was a consequence of her own healing, and not a deliberate act of malice. This is a crucial distinction. She did not set out to hurt him. She set out to save herself. His regret, therefore, is not a victory for her, but a poignant reminder of his own loss, the loss of a woman who was willing to become a universe, while he was still concerned with owning a small piece of her. This is a loss that his ego will struggle to comprehend, as it is based on the logic of profound personal transformation, a logic it cannot follow. The final powerful truth is that she becomes whole and, therefore, dangerous. She is dangerous because she is no longer manipulable. She is a force of nature who cannot be contained by the expectations or demands of others. She is a threat to the fragile egos of those who require her to be small in order for them to feel big. Her wholeness is her armor and her weapon. The paradox is that she did not seek to wound him. She sought to heal herself. The pain he feels is simply the consequence of standing too close to her when her light ignited. Her self-worth is no longer a negotiable term. It is an absolute truth. And this is the most devastating and permanent blow to any ego that ever dared to underestimate her. So, as you reflect on this journey, I have a few questions for you. What if the most powerful thing you can do for yourself is to turn your gaze inward, away from the external chaos, and toward your own inner landscape? What if the most profound act of rebellion isn't to lash out, but to retreat into yourself and find your own strength? And what if the very thing you fear, the pain of self-discovery, is the very thing that will set you free? These are not questions to be answered lightly, but to be pondered deeply in the quiet corners of your mind. The stories and advice we receive often lead us down paths that are ultimately unfulfilling, focusing on external manipulation instead of internal transformation. But a new path is always available to those brave enough to walk it. If this video resonated with you, if it sparked a flicker of recognition in your soul, I encourage you to like it, share it with someone who might also need to hear this message, and leave a comment below with your thoughts. Your perspective and your journey are invaluable parts of this awakening. This is a journey we are all on, a path toward true self-realization and empowerment. Remember, you are not alone in this. The woman who chooses to heal herself, who chooses to become whole, is part of a silent, powerful movement of awakening. Every time you turn away from external validation and toward your inner truth, you are strengthening not only yourself, but also the collective consciousness. It is a difficult and solitary path, but it is the only one that leads to true and lasting freedom. The work of becoming whole is the most important work you will ever do. So I leave you with this final thought. You are not alone. You are simply awakening. Keep going.